When I tell people that I study linguistics at university, there are a few questions I regularly get asked. The first is how many languages I speak, and the answer to that one is that I'm fairly confident I speak at least one language. The second most common is if I'm going to judge them for their bad grammar, and the answer to that one is, well, should I be? The third is what sorts of things I'm learning at university. And this is where the fun begins, because for all of the entertainment of syntax trees and predicate logic, there's nothing like breaking people's brains with simple concepts. Perhaps my favorite of these, though there are quite a few, is when I get to tell people that synonyms don't exist. Addie, I hear some of you say, what fresh nonsense is this? Obviously synonyms exist. Oh, sweet child. No, they don't. At least, not in the way you think they do. You see, while antonyms definitely 100% exist, and are actually rather self-obvious, synonyms almost certainly don't. At least, not really. And if you think about it, that kind of makes sense. Why would you bother to learn and use two different words for otherwise identical meanings? I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't have spare brain cells to remember two different words for the exact same thing. Now, synonyms are a bit of a mess in linguistics, and when we say synonym, we don't really mean any two words that generally mean the same thing. What we're actually referring to is a true or absolute synonym. That is, any two words that are interchangeable, do not affect meaning, and occur in all the same environments. The reason true synonyms are often thought to not exist by linguists is because of something called blocking, which is basically when one thing doesn't occur because of the existence of another that's already in use. This is not, however, a universal belief, and some linguists, like Rochelle Leiber, believe that true synonyms do exist and that blocking is real. If you're curious, I'll link a talk she gave in 2014 on this very topic. Now, personally, I don't agree with her argument, especially since it relies on corpus data, which struggles with individual context, and her own examples seem to reject native speaker intuition regarding words, which people claim feel different, but they struggle to define. Even still, the talk is informative, entertaining, and definitely worth a watch. Some of the reasons why I and other linguists feel that blocking exists boils down to the nature of redundancy, connotation, and native speaker intuition, among other points. As I previously said, it makes fairly little sense for the mind to log two identical words as synonyms, and though there are some examples, they often seem to have confounding factors that complicate things beyond simple synonymy. So why then do linguists feel that synonymy doesn't exist? Well, for starters, connotation. One of the easiest ways for two words to diverge in their meaning is by acquiring extra meanings on top of the basic ones. Connotation is the easiest way for words to change meaning, and it's basically when words gain extra emotional or social facets in addition to basic definitions. This is why words like help and assist, or start and commence, theoretically mean the same thing, but feel different. In the case of those words specifically, the difference is one of formality, but you can just as easily get distinctions for positivity, or intensity, or anything else, really. Theoretically, over time, the words might even truly split from each other until they actually have different meanings. The next reason is practical application. When words don't develop different meanings, do speakers actually use them interchangeably? Well, the jury's still out on that one, but I don't think they actually do. And I'm not the only one. As a deleted user on r/linguistics put it, I see no difference between bucket and pail, and that's why I only use the word bucket. This likely fits with a lot of actual synonyms for most people. You might know that two words mean the same thing, but if you only use one, then are they really synonyms? Or have you done the equivalent of remembering that sometimes when people say agua, they mean water? I don't think that anyone would really argue that agua and water are synonyms, since they're words in different languages, and the same is probably true of words like soda and pop, which definitely mean the same thing, but they're also used in different regions and by different peoples. Synonyms are also made more complicated by the fact that many words that are supposedly synonyms definitely feel different. In a presentation on blocking at the University of New Hampshire, Rochelle Leiber comments that, though they cannot come up with a definition they all agree on, her students definitely seem to feel that couch and sofa are not the same thing. Now, my reflex is to read native speaker intuition into this. Just because speakers are unable to convey a concise definition does not necessarily mean that no distinction exists, just that one is difficult to explain. In fact, differences do exist. It would seem that while there is a regional component to couch and sofa, manufacturers also use the two differently. Both of those might play a role in explaining why speakers feel there to be a difference, but can't explain what it is. Leiber, on the other hand, argues that this is proof of blocking's existence. especially when corpus data is involved, since we can see the word's distribution in a large body of data. This is where the debate finds itself. The pro-blocking side has redundancy, connotation, divergence, and native speaker intuition, and the anti-blocking side has corpus data and a lot of near synonyms. And while I do not plan on criticizing using corpus data to research blocking here, I do think it's not ideal. What I will point out is that there's an issue with the argument made by the anti-blocking side as a whole. Words like pureness and purity, thief and stealer, dived and dove, and eyes and ify are regularly used to prove their case. They show that there are synonyms even if they're somewhat uncommon. But I disagree. First, eyes and ify are both suffixes that make nouns into verbs, but where they show up is entirely conditioned by environment and the shape of the stem they're affixed to. How that's proof of synonymy is beyond me. At the rate that argument is going, you may as well say that the s at the end of cats is synonymous with the z at the end of dogs, or that a and an are synonyms. If the form of the morpheme is conditioned by its environment, that should be proof of blocking, not proof against it. Dived and dove are both purportedly the past tense forms of dive, but when I looked into it, I couldn't find a single person in my life who actually thought that the sentence "he dived into the pool" sounded correct. It's made worse by the fact that dived seems to be more popular in the UK and is less popular with young people. I should also note that my spell check thinks that dived isn't a word, so there's that. Thief and stealer definitely feel different to me, and while I'm open to data to the contrary, I'm not fully convinced you can use corpus data to prove that they actually are identical in meaning and function. But purity and pureness, and words like them, are where things get extreme. The reason they're synonymous is because of the suffix at the very end of the word. Now, as a linguist, I know and agree with the arguments for why two suffixes with identical distribution and meaning would prove synonyms exist, since the difference between affixes and full words is largely a social construct. But that's not the case for a normal person. To normal people, that there are two specific suffixes in English that can be on the same stem and have the same meaning is hardly a comfort. A handful of suffixes that kinda sorta feel different? Is that all? It's almost like trying to look for endangered fish because you couldn't find an ocean. For something that's supposed to be a basic feature of the language, to search for exceptions just to show that it even exists is proof the underlying concept is already an edge case. That potential true synonyms are often edge cases doesn't bode well for the arguments against blocking. It doesn't even prove that blocking doesn't exist as a pressure which works on words over time. So when it comes down to it, do synonyms exist? Well, the answer is maybe, but often not the way you think they do, and even when they might, they seem to definitely be edge cases. That very well might be the midst of a divergence. Okay, so I am kind of freaking out about this. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the Cultist Sim video and who liked and subscribed. Oh my god, there were so many kind comments, ranging from the supportive to the downright flattering. We got to nearly 175 subscribers. The overall response is leagues beyond what I was expecting. I figured that I'd maybe get 50 in a month if I was lucky, but nothing like this. I mean, wow, thank you so much. I am absolutely flattered. For those of you who are wondering about future Cultist Simulator content, Part 1 took me a long time to make, but I'm also new and learned a lot, so I expect to be able to make Part 2 faster than Part 1. I'm hoping for maybe October, but because I have a job, university, and a few other things going on in my life, I can't make any absolute promises at this point. What I can say is that the notes for Part 2 are done and are ready to convert into a script, which is what I'll be doing over the next month or so while I travel. For anyone curious to know what it's about, it's going to be about specific locations in the Mansis, like the Maliary and the Orchard of Lights. After Part 2, I might do the Hours next, though that remains to be seen since it'll be a really fucking long video, and I don't want to overwork myself. For anyone who's curious about why I made this video specifically, I had a few reasons. The first is that I wanted to get something out quick before I left to visit friends for a few weeks, so that I could thank you all and to show you that I'm working on projects. The second is that I want to make videos about things that interest me, and that won't always be Cultist Simulator content. Though, if you're worried, don't be. I have full intentions to continue working on stuff like this and this series, and making videos like this will help me make use of parts of my schedule that are a bit more compressed, where I couldn't necessarily make a full video. as well as to help avoid burnout and to explore other interests, which I feel is very important in allowing me to continue making content. So, given that fact, thank you so much. I look forward to making more videos. Feel free to like and subscribe and comment with any questions you have about the whole process. Thank you so much. It is an absolute honor to have received the positive response I got. Thank you again.